Israel and the United States have coordinated the largest airstrike in a decade against Iran's nuclear program. The bombs have fallen. Underground facilities have trembled. The world has once again tasted the metallic taste of war. Fordow, Natanz, Arak, and Isfahan, names that until yesterday represented the beating heart of Iran's nuclear ambition, are now smoking ruins in the Persian desert. The strike has happened, and Iran has confirmed that the damage was very serious. The main target was Fordow, an underground facility dug nearly 300 feet underground, protected by layers of rock and concrete. It housed Iran's most sophisticated centrifuges, designed to enrich uranium to the limit of military use. What seemed unattainable was achieved with surgical precision. The United States used its GBU-57 bombs, known as bunker busters, weighing more than 30,000 pounds each, capable of piercing underground structures with lethal force. The impact was so violent that satellite images revealed 6 massive craters in the surface above Fordow, as well as dense clouds of dust that persisted for hours, clear evidence of deep structural collapse. But that was not all. Israel, acting in parallel, launched missiles against the access tunnels. The strategy was clear: destroy and also isolate. Fordow was not only hit, it was sealed, buried alive. Iran tried to keep up appearances. During the first few days, the official narrative downplayed the impacts. The state press spoke of sabotage attempts and exemplary resistance. But on June 25th, the narrative changed. Faced with indisputable evidence, the Iranian government publicly admitted that the damage was, in its exact words, very serious. As the world digested this confirmation, another piece of the puzzle emerged: Isfahan, the site where natural uranium is converted into gas to power centrifuges. Their U.S. precision missiles completely destroyed key structures. Satellite images show buildings gone. No defense systems were activated. It all happened too quickly. Next came Natanz, the nerve center for mass uranium enrichment. For this mission, the United States sent the B-2 Spirit bomber, a radar-invisible aircraft designed to fly through enemy airspace undetected. From its internal bays, it dropped the GBU-57 bombs. The craters formed on the surface coincide exactly with the location of the underground centrifuges. None of this was accidental. It was a meticulously planned operation. Finally, Arak, a facility that handles plutonium, another route to nuclear weapons, was also hit. Less publicly mentioned, but essential to the overall program. In less than 72 hours, all 4 pillars of Iran's nuclear structure came under direct and devastating attack. Never before had Iran been exposed in such a violent and coordinated manner. The initial impact was military, but the consequences went far beyond the bombs. The next target would be invisible, the scientific backbone of the program, the brains that kept it going. Soon after the attacks, Western intelligence reports and classified images began to circulate. Pattern was emerging. Amid the debris and dust, another, even more profound damage emerged: the disappearance of Iranian nuclear scientists. At least 10 of them, directly linked to the enrichment and warhead development programs, were killed or mysteriously disappeared in recent months. Some in accidental explosions, others in alleged unclaimed drone strikes, and even in ambushes deep inside Iranian territory. The operation did not just target structures, it targeted the brains of the project. The loss of these scientists represents something much more difficult to repair than a room full of centrifuges. Decades of technical knowledge, codes, accumulated experience. All of it was silently gone. There is no way to replace this human capital overnight. Still, there are uncertainties. Some of the stockpile of uranium enriched to 60%, the closest thing to military use that Iran has achieved, may have been preserved. There is strong evidence that the Iranian regime has moved significant quantities to storage outside the bomb zones. In addition, there are advanced centrifuges that have not yet been installed, stored in secret locations. This means that Iran's nuclear program has not been completely destroyed. It has been disrupted, battered, weakened, but not annihilated. The purpose of the strikes seems clear: to delay the program for years without necessarily forcing an all-out war. The Iranian response, however, was not long in coming. and it was political. In an extraordinary meeting, the Iranian parliament voted to immediately suspend cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. This, in practice, means the end of regular inspections of the country's nuclear facilities, a kind of international blackout about what Iran still has and what it is willing to do with it. More than that, influential parliamentarians have begun to publicly advocate the country's withdrawal from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, a pact signed decades ago to prevent more countries from acquiring atomic weapons. If Iran does indeed abandon the treaty, it will be telling the world, out loud, what was previously only suspected, that it does indeed intend to build a bomb. Meanwhile, a war of accounts is unfolding outside the Middle East. In a leaked interview with the press, a voice that appears to be Donald Trump speaks enthusiastically about the operation. He calls it a brilliant, effective strike that has been completely ignored by the American media. Trump praises the strategic use of B-2 spirits and penetrating bombs, saying that the plan worked better than expected, and that the press is trying to hide the success of the operation to protect Iran. These words further inflamed tempers in Tehran, where officials called the speech a hostile act of imperialist arrogance. Tensions have increased. The situation, already one of fear, is now on the brink of a diplomatic breakdown. At the same time, military movements began to be recorded. Iran activated air defense units in several strategic regions and called up reservists. Israel, in turn, keeps fighter jets on permanent alert. The United States repositioned aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf and intensified drone surveillance in sensitive areas. There are rumors, not officially confirmed, that a cell of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has been sent to Lebanon with the aim of preparing an asymmetric response against Israeli targets. All of this is unfolding in a climate of total uncertainty. There are no formal declarations of war, but there are also no guarantees of peace. The Middle East has once again become the world's powder keg. And what happened in the bowels of Iran is just the trigger. The world is watching in silence, but the silence is about to end. The implications of the attack do not stop at Iran's borders. Several countries have reacted with ambiguous positions. Russia, a traditional ally of Tehran, condemned the attacks with strong words, but avoided direct action. China called for restraint on all sides, while discreetly increasing its diplomatic presence in the region. The European Union was divided. Some considered the attacks disproportionate, but no one dared to say that Iran did not deserve retaliation. Deep down, everyone knows Iran's nuclear program has always been a ticking time bomb, and now someone has pressed the button. Meanwhile, Iranian public opinion is divided between shock, anger, and distrust. Many ordinary citizens, already accustomed to decades of sanctions, now live in fear that war is inevitable. Videos are circulating on social media showing families fleeing areas near the facilities that were attacked, shops being evacuated, and men being called up for emergency training. In Tehran, protests are spreading against the US, against Israel, against the silence of the world. But there are also protests against the regime itself, which is accused of putting the country on the path to destruction by persisting in a nuclear program that has brought more isolation than power. On the Israeli side, the reaction was one of muted celebration. The government has maintained official silence, as usual, but military sources have leaked to the press that the operation was the most effective blow to the Iranian nuclear project since the Stuxnet virus. Officials involved said it was the result of more than 2 years of joint planning with the United States. Sources also say that other targets are being mapped out and that if Iran tries to quickly rebuild any part of the program, new strikes will be launched without warning. Behind the scenes of global diplomacy, the signs are even more worrying. The IAEA has confirmed that it has completely lost access to real-time surveillance data from Iran's nuclear facilities. Monitors have been turned off, cameras ripped out, records sealed. Iran has plunged its nuclear activity into total darkness. This means that no one, absolutely no one outside the regime's inner circle, knows how much material still exists, where it is stored, and what will be done with it. From now on, every step forward is based on guesswork. And that is where the greatest risk lies. Because when you don't know what your enemy has, The only way to protect yourself is to assume the worst. This dangerous and unstable logic is what has historically led nations to the brink of the abyss. All it takes is a drone crossing the wrong border, a missile hitting the wrong city, a mistimed statement, and everything goes up in smoke. Some say that the US and Israeli strikes set back Iran's atomic dream by 5 or even 10 years. But there are also those who say it sealed the region's fate for an irreversible escalation. In a recent statement, the commander of the Revolutionary Guards stated that Iran will not forget, will not forgive, and will respond when the enemy is most vulnerable. Meanwhile, the country's religious leadership declared that the martyrs of the nuclear program will be avenged, not with words, but with action. The rhetoric has reached its peak. Every sentence is a threat, every silence a sign. Right now, the world is in suspense. No nuclear attack has been launched, but the climate is pre-war. Diplomacy is weakening. Sanctions are increasing. Blocs are organizing. Peace as we know it is at risk. What began as a precision operation may have been the first chapter of something much bigger. Something that, if it gets out of control, will not be limited to the Middle East. It will be global, and perhaps irreversible, because in the end, it is not nuclear weapons that threaten us. It is the certainty that we are prepared to use them,